broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, thank you very much, Aaron. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to be with you today. Happy Tuesday. I have looked forward to this webinar for many weeks now. I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I am just delighted to share a few minutes with you to share something that I feel very, very strongly about. I believe that the material that we're going to be covering today is going to be very enlightening to you and empowering to all of you who are parents. You know, I believe that in many ways, raising a child in today's environment is quite challenging. I think all of us can sort of attest to the difficulties that we may face in an era of information and freedom and access to so much. But at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that if you're a parent or a grandparent today, if you have any influence in terms of raising and influencing children and any sort of caregiver um, sort of mode or responsibility, that there are more things today, so many more things today we know about parenting and behavior that we did not know decades ago. In our day specifically, we know more about personality profiles, and this knowledge can empower you as parents to be more effective in your parenting. I'm going to come back to this over and over again. In fact, you're going to hear me repeat this sort of comment several times about today is such a great day to be a parent. It's a great day to learn the things that you can learn that we didn't know when I was beginning raising my family. Well, the topic today, I hope, also can bring a sense of relief as you understand some basic ideas regarding personality, and that you have, again, an additional parenting tool that you may not have considered before and you may not have used before. Now, if you've worked in an environment where as part of the onboarding process, if you will, of getting a job, you may have taken a personality profile test, or you may have done this in college or something like that. We'll talk about a couple of those assessments today. But if you've done that before, then you probably have a pretty good idea, at least at some level, of what we're going to get into today. Because I hope to give you a context into the world of your child and why they may act the way they do and how you can deepen your parent-child relationship. Now, additionally, at the same time, I want you to know that this material actually can be applied to all of your relationships. In fact, as you see or hear much of the information that we go through today, I think you're going to find your mind drifting to looking at yourself. While we're going to be focusing on children, you're going to be looking at yourself and beginning to identify perhaps your own personality profile and traits, and that's going to be a fun time together. It's going to be very enlightening, as I said, and I think it's going to be, well, I call it a twofer, right? You're going to learn all about your children and how to relate to them better, how to deepen that parent-child relationship using personality profiles, and at the same time, I think you're going to find some own self-enlightenment, some information about you that I think can be very fascinating. So I think what we're talking about today is going to benefit both a parent and any adult, and actually, even though we'll be focusing and languaging upon the parent. You're sort of getting double the information today, and its application, I think, has terrific opportunity for you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move on now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at the introduction for today, and I want you to know that as we begin to go through this idea of each child having a specific personality type, it's an important factor for every parent to know that each child does, in fact, have his or her own specific personality type or style. With this understanding, it's not difficult to see, if you have any more than one child in your home, why different children respond to the same parenting so dramatically differently. In our family, we have 7 children, and I can tell you, as many of you know who have multiple children, that my goodness, it is so dramatically different. I don't know how you know, these different unique personalities all exist in one home, and it's been, you know, sort of a chaotic challenge, you know, of trying to identify each person, but it's been fun. The process and journey has been wonderful for me and my wife, and I can tell you that any family, any size, any constellation and makeup of a family, including your children, is going to have deep opportunity for growth and positive influence in managing children's behavior because of today's discussion. Each child, again, has their own specific personality type and style, and we're going to help you identify that and walk you through a process of helping nurture and give you some ideas of what you can do for each different child. I think it's just going to be wonderful. But today's discussion is going to give you a context about why or the reality of how it can be that so many different personalities can exist in one home or one family. Or if you have a child, you are blessed to have one child, then I think today is going to give you a chance to focus all that attention and all this knowledge and information and channel it into this incredible relationship that's between you and that child. Well, it's highly recommended that you learn to identify your child's personality type and style, and there's lots of effective ways that you're going to learn today about how you can improve and understand your relationship with your child vis-a-vis their personality type and style. So I hope today is also maybe an opportunity for you to go through a journey of your own discovery about your personality type and style and how it applies to your child. So we're going to cover a broader range of things. So let's move on. So oftentimes people who may not be familiar, who didn't take sort of these personality tests when they hired on or went to college, oftentimes people will want to know about what is a personality type and style. So let me give you just some context for the historical sort of look at this. For a very long time, psychologists have been studying our personalities. It's kind of a why do we do the things we do? Why do we act the way we do kind of thing. Now, over decades of research, we can now fairly accurately identify personality types, also referred to in a broader context as a personality profile. While this is not a perfect science, it is fascinating to see how spot on these profiles are. You'll get this as we go through the webinar today, and you'll see these sort of characteristics of yourself and your children sort of bubbling to the surface and being pretty easy to see. These personality types or styles define attitudes and behavior in every single one of us, basically the whole human family. And actually, the basic profiles are relatively immune to race or culture or even one's experience. Now, while it is true that our core self can change over time, think of maybe an experience like if you've seen Charles Dickens and Mr. Scrooge sort of changing, or you know of people in your own life who have had these sort of seminal events in life where they have sort of changed, characterology, have gone through great change. Most of us actually maintain, despite that change, a basic personality framework. You have one, I have one, and we all have one, and so do your children. And that's why we as parents who have more than one child, again, can easily see the vast differences among children, even though it came from the same set of parents in the same home environment and even using the same parenting efforts. Through our DNA, if you will, we come with a fairly intact personality when we're born. And while we can improve upon ourselves, and we need to do that, and make dramatic changes in our behavior, we find ourselves essentially being the same person at our very core. We are who we are, so to speak. And that's what makes personality profiling so easy and actually so predictable. Now, let me hasten to add that one of the concerns that I have as I give this presentation to parents all over the country is the concern that I have about labels and what your child may do or you may do based on how you react to this information. So let me articulate it a little bit more convincingly. Sometimes when we identify our personality type or style, we sort of abdicate responsibility for our behavior. We end up saying, well, this is just how I am, this is how I'm made. And that must not be tolerated. That is not a correct perspective. Whether it's adults or children, oftentimes will use labels to support their behavior or their inabilities all day long to make sure that that they don't sort of face up to responsibility or to their behavioral standards. So what I'd like to say to you parents is that As you help identify your child's personality type or style, we want to make sure that we help our children understand that even though we may be a blue or a red or whatever color we're going to talk about today, that our personality type and style, it does not excuse inappropriate behavior. It doesn't excuse us for being less than our best. So recognize, again, one more time, as we begin to identify or label a certain personality type or style, there is room for growth and goodness and excellence in every profile. So please make sure we understand that as we begin. All right, so let's move on. The purpose of this presentation is to assist parents and caregivers in discovering what kind of person their child is choosing to be and how it best fits for them to facilitate a child's personal growth and the process for learning and development. Today's payoff is going to be that you will leave with a better understanding of your child's primary color, i.e. their personality, and you're going to be armed with some strategies to best communicate, raise, and influence that child. Again, let me hasten to add that there are numerous subsets of personality types and styles, but we're going to stay within the basic four general profiles that all sort of personality research has sort of focused on. And so this is going to be a simple yet profound presentation. For our today's purpose, we're going to focus on these four basic styles, and I'd like to take a rather complex discussion into the language and understanding sort of common or layperson. So I'm going to identify and refer to these personality profiles by identifying them with a specific color that I hope will describe that personality trait or style. These four colors for our purposes today will be red, yellow, blue, and green. Red, yellow, blue, and green. Now each of us more or less can be described in one of these colors. And so today is going to be your opportunity to identify to some degree yourself, but more importantly right now for your children. Now, today's family is comprised of various personalities and titles that go beyond sort of traditional roles of mom and dad and children. Many of us are referred to as stepmoms and stepdads, stepbrothers and sisters, even foster moms and dads, legal guardians, and the list certainly goes on and on. But for all of these different roles or titles, I want to use the term parent as a general term throughout the presentation, actually that refers to any caregiver. Okay? Okay, so let's move to the clash of colors. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes confusion can often precede understanding. So at the end of today's presentation, you're going to be given a chance to submit some questions, and I want to make sure that if there's any confusion at the end, that we have a chance to sort of talk about those. You can send those into Aaron and to the team, and we'll deal with them. But what I want to say is that many times our relationships sort of go astray for reasons that are unknown to us. It sort of leaves us confused and oftentimes bewildered about how this happened or why this is even happening. Problems will arise in every parent-child relationship. So when you have parents and caregivers whose color or personality type or style is opposite to their children's personalities, we oftentimes can have a clash. We don't know why necessarily, but today you will. You'll have a better understanding of some of these challenges. In other words, we as parents tend to see each other as being different instead of having something to offer. Understanding your personality or your child's personality will help you see the unique contributions they can make. And so you move from sometimes power struggles or a relationship where you're sort of distancing and closed down, and you begin to see each other through a personality filter that really gives you a chance to mend and heal relationships. In addition, let me say that the value of one's primary color can become the stressors for another person's primary color, right? Sort of the oil and water sort of thing, in terms of you must have had people in your life that you just, as much as you like them, it just seems to sort of not go well, right? Because you both have dominant traits in your personality that sort of can offend and be challenging for another. Or put another way, what one person's joy is another person's nightmare. The clash is what creates conflict and difficulty and keeps family members from appropriately relating to each other. So today, armed with even casual knowledge of personality types and profiles, will help you alleviate these kinds of clashes. actually you'll now have a context for why things are not going the way you want with your child and what you can do to improve that. And that's what I think is so empowering, so wonderful about today's discussion. Again, as I've said before, this understanding has enormous value in your adult relationships, in your work relationships, in your adult family relationships. But again, that's a discussion for another day. Okay, so let's move on. So as we launch into a description of personality types, please know that each of us has a primary or a dominant color as well as a secondary color, or a dominant personality type and trait and a secondary one as well. We may find ourselves being sort of a lot of this and a lot of that. In fact, the first time I took my personality assessment, I was 1 point off between my primary and secondary color. I was fascinated by that realization for me, and it's actually very true. Simply know that you will likely have strong traits of another color that is normal and healthy. So having two strong types is very normal and healthy and is perfectly fine. So sometimes it causes us to sort of wonder if we're really this or that. Just know that you have two and of the four, and you use those to your benefit as we move on. At the end of the presentation, again, you'll be given the opportunity to take a brief questionnaire. I'm going to show you a link. In fact, if you have a cell phone near you with a camera on it, you want to get that. If you're going to need to have a pencil and paper near you, you can write this down. So I want to make sure that you're prepared for that. So if there's something near you, a camera phone, just know at the end of the presentation you want to take a picture of the slide I'm going to show you so we can give you a free assessment. Okay. So this will help you not only stand your personal personality characteristics, but will allow you to more fully recognize your child's personality traits and help them meet their needs. A common mistake, ladies and gentlemen, that many of us parents make is to look at behavior simply as behavior, sort of independent, and that nothing could be farther from the truth or helpful. If we look at behavior simply as behavior, not really as realizing that behavior actually stems from our personality. It's an outgrowth of something. So we tend to discipline behavior as parents oftentimes without looking at what drives the behavior. It's kind of like the root and the branches. While you may see branches of behavior, we oftentimes are blind to the root causes of that behavior. That's why we want to make sure that you and I as parents focus on the roots, not just the branches. In other words, seeking to manage and influence behavior without considering the root cause of the behavior, i.e. personality profile, is often a lesson in frustration. Now, as a parent, you can facilitate deep emotional growth within your child, no matter their age, through greater awareness of themselves as well as how they view others. You are going to have a great time creating a context now for your children of how they see the world and view other people and how they identify their own strengths and talents. You're going to be able to provide an easy context for your child to see others and how they can best interact with them. Additionally, armed with greater knowledge, you'll be able to see how you can best nurture the unique contributions of each of your children. Okay, let's move on to the next. Well, let's take a second just to make sure we set the table properly and that you're ready for a great experience. I'd like to ask each of you to take a moment, get a pencil and paper, something to write with and on, and I'd like to ask you just to take a second and write down the name or names of your children and give yourself a couple of inches in between each child if you can. Just write their names. Their age is not important. If you have adult children, this will be helpful as well. You'll have to use a little bit of creativity here to apply this in an age-appropriate way. But write down the names of your children. Thank you very much for doing that. We always appreciate people actually getting the most you can from participating in this exercise. Now take just a minute and quickly write down 2 or 3 traits about each of your children. Would you do that? This is going to be very helpful to you in about 10 minutes, okay? So take a second and just write down, then you got the name of your child, and then give me 2 or 3 things. Susie is good at organization. Mark is good at talking. He's a good conversationalist. Aaron is good at organizing and keeping the family orderly. You know, each of us have sort of a trait or two. Would you mind taking just a couple of seconds here and write down a trait or two for each of your children? Thank you very much for doing that. This will be quite helpful. We're going to give you, again, just a second to finish writing down a trait or two of your child, okay? Now, as I describe various colors, indicate on your sheet of paper the color that you think best applies to your child. Because, and again, you're going to probably also see your own personality type or style as well, but since we're going to focus on your kids, put again, you name their traits, and then as I talk about the color, write down the color next to your child's name, would you? And we can attach your child to a personality color. We'll look at each personality profile and determine which color best matches or sort of describes your child. Okay. So let's begin with blue. Again, we're gonna begin with blue all day long. So let's begin with blue. Blue children typically demand lots of time and attention. Let's see if we can identify this. They do not like to be left alone, and at times may appear more attached than other children in your family. From early on, blue children are sensitive little beings with an uncanny ability to read your emotions. You wonder that they should become a therapist. They just have a way of sort of connecting and reading people. They express what their feelings are from an early age. They often have a natural gift for language and will talk at an early age. They're conversational. They're oftentimes more extroverted than other children in your family, and they can talk a lot when around others and feel totally comfortable talking to themselves actually when no one else is around. Blue children, ironically, have this wonderful ability to talk to adults, even at an early age, and you sort of wonder where that came from. That oftentimes represents a blue personality. Blue children have a great need to please other people. Their behavior often represents need for love and acceptance, and so you find them being very helpful. Blue children tend to make good eye contact and appear to listen relatively attentively. They have great empathy and are able to grasp the emotions of others pretty early on in their life, actually. Their facial expressions indicate warmth and friendliness. They're expressive in their sort of body language, if you will. They enjoy being around others, especially family members, and will make use of frequent touch. They want to be nurtured, enjoy being held or coddled, to know that they are totally accepted. You will hear feeling in their voice, and they may begin to sentences with sort of "I feel," or they'll communicate sentences with that term in them. I feel this way, and they're very sort of in tune with their feelings. Another characteristic of blue children is that they do not like any type of conflict. They avoid it. They avoid it and become very emotional if conflict arises. I have a blue child, and you look at them in a certain way, and they just sort of break down. They're very sensitive. Conflict means rejection to them. If punishment plays into their discipline, remember that blues are often extra sensitive and will need to know that they're always loved no matter what their behavior they may be displaying. Blue children also have a great imagination. They're terrific at making up stories and games and activities that just leave you wondering, where in the world did this child come up with this stuff? Okay, so that's blue children. Okay, that's just a general overview of blue children. Let's move now to the yellows. Yellow children are sort of known as the good little boys and girls. Yellow children are actually the easiest of all children to parent. At an early age, you begin to notice actually how mature and responsible they can be, and you just wonder how did this happen? You know, they just seem to take a level of responsibility and maturity that is far beyond their years. They may include picking up their toys, cleaning their room, they do their homework, they help out with household chores, following rules without question. They don't give you much of a sort of resistance and pushback. They don't argue. Early on, you notice that yellows are sort of busy organizing people. They enjoy organizing friends and school projects and even household activities. School comes pretty easy, actually, for yellow types due to their sort of obedient nature. They sort of dig in and get it done. It was probably the yellow types who developed the sort of educational system in the first place, actually. Yellow children thrive when there is order, structure, and established rules. There's a certain sense of safety that they derive from the rules and the structure around them. They take on roles of teachers, helpers. They oftentimes want to assist in any way that demonstrates their dependability and responsibility. Yellow children are also known to be the sort of caretakers of the family. They're willing to watch little brothers and sisters, cook meals, do dishes, help out in any way they can. They're sort of service-oriented. They're helpers and they're concerned about others. They respond best when adults notice their good behaviors. Yellows are more cautious than the other types of personalities and are constantly striving for a sense of security and predictability. They want to feel safe and are often driven by fear. Fear is their worst enemy. This fear can limit their potential and prevent them from taking on more of sort of red risk qualities. You know, they're not risk takers, and you want them to sort of do that. If home is their refuge, then their rooms are their sanctuaries. It is from this sort of safe space that yellows feel most secure and sort of willing to work. Let's move on to the reds. The red profile. You know, we've all heard the expression, he's a real character, she's a real character. Of all the 4 colors, reds are usually the sort of characters and thus the easiest to read. As children, they are of good cheer and often have a unique way of expressing themselves in terms of who they are. They have enormous amounts of energy. They have enormous amounts of creativity. They're running here and they're always seeking sort of the next adventure. Of all the colors, reds are most excitable and they usually operate full throttle. Kind of, they grow up to be sort of the extreme sports kind of people, just as an FYI. They become bored pretty easily, actually. You'll notice them going from one activity to another or one project to another. They like to be kept busy with projects or activities that require their sort of direct involvement. As children and adults, the reds are sort of hands-on kind of people. They're typically kinesthetic learners. They can finger paint and draw for hours and on end when they discover sort of this passion. Red children are very creative individuals. They usually challenge rules and regulations that are placed upon them or for them or before them. You may notice their negotiation skills pretty early as they try to make deals with their parents and teachers, almost it seems on a daily basis. By nature, they are pretty competitive and they dislike losing. Many red children are unfortunately misdiagnosed actually as having ADD or ADHD. Now, regardless of that, regarding their self-esteem, red children are very confident, bold, and oftentimes sort of daring people. I know that when you take a look at a 2 or 4 or 6-year-old, you may begin to see these qualities of boldness or confidence in who they are and identifying, you know, their sort of being comfortable in their own skin. They're beginning to sort of express all of this even very early. Although children are all impulsive, red children are typically more impulsive than others. They are more apt to act on their impulses because they trust them. Their need for stimulation drives them to be more risk-driven and participate in more risk-driven behaviors, tend not to know sort of challenges or dangers. Parents need to watch them pretty closely or they will take risks without considering the consequences. And that's the red profile. Let's move to the greens. Of all the colors, green children are by most sort of the most independent with their own mind and in their own sort of space. They are information gatherers of the world. Green children at an early age oftentimes question everything. They're inquisitive. Now that may include other sort of colors, but green ones really are more easy to accept information from the outside. They're information gatherers. This in itself can be a real challenge for parents of green children. Green types like saying the word no because it's a sort of part of their nature to sort of claim things as their own. They have to sort of process and make it sort of their own idea. Sometimes it's difficult for greens to accept information from someone else because they have to process it through their own filter, and then they own it. You know, sort of, you may have a good idea, but they have to make a good idea sort of become their own. If you know adults this way, you can certainly see that that's a green trait. Once they have time to think things through and see it sort of in their green way, acceptance may finally be in order. And so green children will seek out logical explanations for everything, and most likely have invented the word why. Why does it rain? Why do we have to eat at the table? Why this? Why that? Sort of why? Just know that that's a trait of green children. As parents, be prepared to use your green brain to explain a lot of these sort of whys. When your explanations make sense to them, you will win the respect and admiration of your green child. Green children may prefer to be alone and not socialize like many of the kids their age. They get caught up in sort of their own world, as they are often sort of curious by nature. They find a sense of peace and serenity or security and comfort just sort of, contemplating a flower or an animal or something. They have investigative minds from early on and seek opportunities to learn as much as they can. Due to their inquisitive nature, they usually love school and learning. However, if school is not mentally challenging, they will quickly become bored and do their sort of own thing. When it comes to social graces, they are most likely to present themselves as a bit clumsy, sort of awkward maybe. Not known for being sensitive, they can be direct and sarcastic with other children. Sometimes seen as sort of the nerd, if you will, greens tend to focus on the intellect, bypassing their other colors. It is here that parents need to explain to them how they need to use their sort of mental abilities to learn to communicate to others and with others. It's using your strengths to move a green in a proper and comfortable direction. So that's greens. Now, let's move to this slide. I think is actually very fascinating. For many of you who may have taken a test that we refer to as a Myers-Briggs test, it's probably the most widely known sort of worldwide personality profile. It's really very, very helpful. What we've done is we've taken the sort of the Myers-Briggs information, and we have now attached these traits to different colors, and this is sort of a graph that shows you how your sort of personality is sort of a seen world. How many people in the world, the population of the world, represents sort of your own personality. I think it's very interesting to look at these statistics from Myers-Briggs Personality Indicator, again, that we adapted for colors that provide you an idea of sort of where you are, where you fall regarding to the population and distribution of colors. And I think it's very interesting. Again, you see reds and yellows being much more common amongst the population, greens and blues less common. And you see sort of primary and secondary personality traits and colors that I think become, again, fascinating. Why this is helpful is you begin to see that these four sort of quadrants of personality types are actually pretty popular, and again, we can with great deal of predictability see how people sort of interact in the world, and this is why, again, you want to know these ideas of personality types and styles. Okay, so there's sort of a graph I think is helpful to you. Let's move on. Now, we all have different needs depending on our primary and secondary colors. If you are fortunate, or let's say wise enough, to know your primary color of your child, you will likely have a better understanding of their specific needs. Now, I'm talking about emotional needs. Once you sort of know their emotional needs, you can meet those needs more effectively and forego many of the trials and challenges that many parents actually experience that they don't need to experience. Again, we want to minimize the amount of sort of challenges between the parent and children, and that's informing you of some things that will alleviate that. Again, we want you to focus on their personality trait, not just their behavior. Again, focusing on their behavior without considering their personality color is a real challenge. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about some of these emotional needs of blue children. Now, blue children have a great need to know that they are loved and valued. We talked about this at the beginning. They enjoy a physical touch and closeness. They're sometimes clingy when they're young. They will flourish in atmospheres where love is expressed, and so you want to hear phrases like "I love you," or you want to be giving them compliments and verbally, acknowledging what they do. "You are the most important person in the world to me," is something that a blue child is going to love to hear. They enjoy being praised and acknowledged for their goodness. It's a way of them evaluating, your acceptance and love for them. Again, physical touch like hugs and kisses, holding hands, pats on the shoulder are all needed by by blues on a relatively consistent, maybe even a daily basis, to reassure them of your love. Giving a boy a high five and things like that becomes so needed by a blue child. All children need this, but it's especially important to the blue child. Blues are the social butterflies and will need others around them. They have no problem typically making friends, and they actually are pretty popular in any environment. And they typically have lots of friends. Knowing this, I think you can begin to see how you can relate to a blue child, what their needs are, and how you can create their world in a way that supports, nurtures their blue personality. Let's move to the yellow child and look at some of their needs. Yellow children have a great need for structure and order in their life. That means having rules that are clear and established routines for them to follow is so very important. They have a strong need to feel safe and secure. They like predictability. Reassuring them with plans that will help reduce any anxiety that they may be experiencing. You do not, to a yellow child, creating spontaneous activities may not be as comforting to them as it would be for a red child, for instance, who loves spontaneity. Right? A yellow child wants predictability and clarity and consistency. They need to feel responsible and need to be involved in planning or execution of family or school activities. They make good little administrators, actually. They appreciate having plans and goals to work toward. They like to have expectations laid out before them and specific means to achieve their goals. Like blue children, yellows too needs lots of acknowledgement. They enjoy verbal praise. Not for who they are necessarily, but they're looking for praise regarding their accomplishments or achievements, their organizational skills, the ability to get something done. Okay, let's move on. Reds. Due to the enormous amount of energy, red children need plenty of physical movement. As I mentioned earlier, they are kinesthetic children. They learn by doing. That usually means some sort of creative play. They become bored very easily. They need lots of variety. They typically will move from thing to thing to thing, right? As they get older, they will sort of invest and get really pumped about one particular sort of activity or something, put themselves into it a lot, and then sort of it dies, and then they go to another one, and then they go to another one. That's just typical of a red personality. They have a unique need for self-expression and creativity. They have a great need for action and excitement and fun in their life. They need to have sort of a hands-on sort of projects and activities for optimal learning to take place. They need to do things sort of their way. They're pretty strong-willed. They have a strong need to compete against other people. By winning at whatever they do, they are fulfilling their need for recognition. And as you know, red children love to have the spotlight on them. Let's move to the green children. Green children need mental and intellectual challenges for their inquisitive minds to thrive. They need logical explanations. They need to use their mental abilities to learn how to communicate to others. So if you're a parent and you're reacting on an emotional level to a green child who wants logical explanations, this is where the disconnect becomes. And you want to, again, that's why it's so important to know what a child's personality type and profile is, so you can operate and respond to that need, not their sort of high-level emotional need that you may have as a parent. Green children need extra help in social skills and expressing their feelings. They need time to be alone with their thoughts. They need to know the why. They need and appreciate information that pertains to them and their situation. Introverted green types may present that they don't need anything from you or anyone for that matter. Again, they're introverted. They are alone. They enjoy their own world. They most likely know that they may not have all the answers before they're perfectly content and being at peace with the answers that they have for themselves. Green children are perfectly content reading or being alone in their room in their own world. They tend to enjoy being alone, or they limit their friends to very few in number. And it can be challenging for parents to accept who may be more of sort of social butterflies. Let's talk about the blue child and how we can now go and begin to say, how can we facilitate growth in each of these 4 personality types and styles, okay? As a parent, you want to reassure Blue children on a daily basis that they're loved and valued for who they are. Read as much as possible to them to foster their imaginations. They enjoy stories. They love stories. All kids love stories, but a Blue child loves creative stories, the stories that you sort of make up and tell them at bedtime. They're sort of the make-believe sort of stories, right? Create a family time or share time where all members can share what they are feeling, fostering new learning opportunities for them. They love new learning opportunities. Do nice things. They tend to do nice things for others, so give them a chance to do that. Have them be involved in service projects or service-related kinds of activities where they can help out, because this validates their feelings for sort of the value and purpose of their life. Being able to be involved in sort of service-oriented kinds of things creates a safe space where they can share and create sort of individual time for them in terms of what they do. If other siblings are in the picture, you want to help make projects for Blues to be involved in and be involved in sort of chores, because chores are meaningful to them. Model to them appropriate ways to express emotions. As a parent, you want to learn to model forgiveness and saying you're sorry. The word forgive becomes very important for a very important word for a Blue parent to sort of express very quickly, actually, because if there's any sense of tension to a Blue child, this is going to create a lot of anxiety for you. You want to forgive them very quickly. You don't want them to hold on to anything very long. And again, as a parent, you want to ask to be forgiven by them. They very much enjoy and operate on that level. Learn how to model and express emotion is something very important, for a Blue parent, or for a parent to model for a Blue child. Let's move on. Let's talk about how you can facilitate growth for a Yellow child. Recognize and reward good behaviors. It's very important that you do that. Establish rules and routines, like eating at certain times. Just putting a calendar or a schedule to some of the things that you do in your family is going to really be helpful to a Blue child. They love having a schedule. It provides sort of a safe environment, home environment, when you have this sort of structure in your home. Provide positive role modeling. Is very important. They learn behavior by what they see. All kids do that, but particularly a Yellow. You recognize little things they do well. This is so important to them. Provide opportunities for them to be sort of responsible, to be in charge, to organize things. Have them be your helper. Give them opportunities when they go shopping. Ask them to go grab a certain sort of thing that you want, that they know where it is in the aisle in the grocery store, for instance. Let them make decisions on meals. Is all the kind of very good things for them. Model good organizational skills for them. That's going to be important for them. Promote family traditions. Encourage them to join organizations. They like that. They like being involved with an organization. They like being a contributor to organizations, to a greater sort of responsibility, if you will. I think these kinds of kids will enjoy making a to-do list. And so you can do that, use that. Reward them when they sort of complete their to-do list as well. That becomes important. Yellow children like being punctual, so you want to be prompt and on time. They don't like it when you're not prompt or on time. Promote and model positive social skills. This can be very important for a Yellow child. Reward them again for their accomplishments or achievements. Well, that's true with everybody. It's particularly true for the Yellow child. Let's move on. When we talk about Red children, they need opportunity to develop their sort of creative and artistic skills. Make activities fun. It's really important that you make activities fun for them, but you have to make sure that there's a contest associated with the activity at some level, right? I have a child, a grandchild who's a Red, and he talks about winning the trophy. There's always a trophy associated to everything that goes on in his life. It's very interesting to see sort of winning the trophy with him. It's just part of the philosophy, no matter whether it has nothing to do with the activity. It's just there's a trophy attached to everything. You want to engage them in sort of creative environments that are stimulating. Bright colors is going to be important to them. You want to learn to mix things up, because consistency and predictability is not as helpful to a Red. While they need some, and every child needs some boundaries, obviously. But you want to mix things up a little bit. Promote variety in all that they do. Provide plenty of free time for sort of self-expression. Promote more short and intense projects versus sort of lengthy ones. Encourage team projects. They love working in teams and with other people. You provide deadlines for them. You promote sort of energy breaks where they can sort of burn off some excess energy so they have a an opportunity to sort of get the willies out, as you will, right? You want to having a timeout where they're quiet and sort of not doing anything. It's going to be a challenge for you if you try to use a timeout for a red child. You got to figure out a way that you can sort of do that effectively. It may be a challenge for them. Permit them to test the limits. Allow them to test limits. It's just part of who they are. It's not a bad behavior thing. It's just sort of who they are and how they're wired. As you're in control of the final outcome, just know that you're going to be okay. Just allow them to test some limits. Allow plenty of space to run, to play, to interact with their environment. When you talk about teens, provide some risk-based activities. Skateboarding, rock climbing, sporting activities where they can sort of compete are all going to be important to them. And then, of course, recognize them for those accomplishments because they love competition, love winning. Now let's go to sort of the facilitating growth in the green child. Channel their creative energy into projects or activities. Ask for their assistance in solving problems. Foster learning opportunities. All learning opportunities become important to them. Provide reading materials. Provide mental challenges like puzzles. Crossword puzzles are terrific. Word finders. Fiction books like Harry Potter or science fiction books are favorite of green children. Encourage independence. Promote sort of self-discovery and research. You want to model excellence in some form in your home because that is what greens are going to, they love to sort of achieve a certain level of excellence in their home. Demonstrate competence to them when opportunities arise. They need to see how competent they are in a variety of activities. This becomes very, very important to a green. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's important as we move on here that you regularly contribute, provide opportunities for children to contribute to your family. As you do create opportunities for your children to contribute to your family based on their personality type and style, you're going to be more successful with them as an adult. Meaning, as they grow up, if you have nurtured and fostered these personality traits in them, they will become more successful as adults, and you will enjoy a wonderful sort of adult friendship with your children. This is how it's done at the beginning and throughout their life. If your children are older now, and you may have children who are teenagers or young adults, these same principles are still applicable and true. Again, it's sort of hardwired for that. What I'd like to just remind you is that each of your children brings a unique way of relating to the world, to their world, and their way needs to be valued and recognized. It's important that you approach them through their lens of their personality and not your lens. When you do, it's sort of the oil and water thing. Your personality style may not, your approach, it may not be as effective for another child who has a different personality type of style. So you want to meet them at their level, and that's why learning has become so important. Oftentimes, children may think or feel that they don't have much to offer, that they're not that unique, but they are unique. They may be unaware of their color and therefore their unique natural gifts. And so as a parent, you can increase their awareness of what they have to offer by talking and helping them see how their personality has developed and the gifts that become sort of part of who they are. And you want to help them in that sort of learning process. Now let's take a very quick look. We're running almost out of time here, but before I close, let me just take a look at these 4 colors and what they can bring to sort of each individual family. Depending on their age, blue children can be the real catalyst for family interactions. Naturally, they're gifted with skills to effectively deal with people. They may help mediate family conflicts. They're excellent at understanding and articulating where all family members are emotionally. They make great listeners and can be very helpful to parents and caregivers and siblings alike. They tend to nurture others and for the most part are very positive to be around. They work well with creating harmony in the household and keeping a pulse on sort of all the relationships in the family all under one roof, if you will. We often think of blue and red personalities as sort of the first children born into your family. And that's very true with blues. They take care of the family. They nurture and protect the family. Yellow children like to pitch in and get things accomplished in the household. They do a good job of keeping things clean, making sure the family is sort of on time, for church or school or sort of planned activities. Yellow children are very dependable and can be counted on when the going gets tough for others. Because they're responsible for other family members, you can rely on them to follow through on tasks that may not place as a priority. They can help other people sort of see that priority. They're very good to be used by you as a parent to help another child see and follow through on tasks. They're good managers. They're so good at responsibility. They're sure that your pets are fed. Yellow children learn early on that family traditions are important, and they will see to it that these traditions are promoted and carried out. They will remind parents if they're not followed. They'll be your conscience, if you will. Again, depending on their age, yellow children are good at helping to plan and execute family events and activities. They're also the ones, sort of picking up after everyone when the party's over. And they're dependable. Red's contribution is they bring a lot of spontaneity and fun to the family household. You sort of never know what it's going to be. It may include some kind of crisis like breaking an arm, a head injury, or playing cuts and scrapes as a result of sort of their activities. Hospitals and emergency rooms are sort of second homes to red children. Their contribution to your family is they bring a sense of excitement and wonder to your family. They make things fun for everyone. They usually have a great sense of humor, making everyone laugh. Many Reds are sort of natural-born entertainers who always like sort of being ready. They're always sort of ready for the show. Everything's a stage to them, oftentimes anyway. If and when things get boring in the household, you can count on the Red person to sort of mix it up. They're usually the first ones to get in trouble, to take a risk, which is another sort of reason for bringing the family together, to allow the Reds a way of sort of keeping people intact and keeping themselves out of trouble. Red children like to jump in and get things done, and so you want to use that as a parent and in your family. The family's challenges will be to make the family work look like fun, because to a Red person, they like to have fun. If you're able to pull it off, your Red child will be chomping at the bit to get started. Red children, as we talked about earlier, love spontaneous activities. I have a child I have children who represent each of these personalities, and I think for the Red person, they're going to enjoy sort of their own personal day of fun. And so we have in our family Jessie's day of fun, because it's so important that she's sort of recognized for her own individual day. And the Red people like that. Green contributes to the family in some really wonderful ways in terms of problem solving, and many times offer a perspective or solution to the family problem that other family members may not even have considered. Depending on their age, they have a wealth of information and can bring light to many new ways of looking at things that other family members are not capable of doing. Many green children also possess a good sense of humor. They can be witty and rather fun to be around. So you want to use that. They usually have strong memory recall abilities that always allows them to sort of come in handy at family gatherings or functions. When difficult family decisions need to be made, green children, of course, depending on their age, can provide contributions that are very helpful to the family unit, because they separate themselves emotionally from the decision-making process. They can become a trusted advisor to a parent, and you'll always want to use them in this sort of decision-making process. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one of the challenges that we face as parents is that each of us wants to make sure we model the appropriate 4 colors, if you will, in every family. And when you get to a point that you're in sort of survival mode, the typical survival mode parent will operate at the extremes of their primary color. For example, blue parents will avoid conflict with their spouse, and so if you model that you don't like, you're avoidant to challenges, your children are going to grow up and sort of being stressed out because they see you modeling the extreme side of a particular personality type and style. Red parents might model the exact opposite, teaching their children to be confrontational or verbal, or use physical means to control others. And so you want to learn to sort of be cautious about getting to the extreme of your color. Again, yellow parents may be very strict and model sort of controlling or restrictive behaviors. Green parents may model emotional detachment because they enjoy being in their own world. You want to make sure that when you're in sort of survival mode, when stress becomes very challenging for you, that you want to model the healthy and appropriate areas of your personality type and style. It's important to remember that your children need to have modeled for them all of the colors. If you as their parent find it hard or impossible to model their colors, it's probably good that you involve someone else in another adult or caregiver, a friend in the family, to help you model, or help them see a different sort of way of doing it, so that you don't feel like you're all alone and you can't model appropriately all the 4 behaviors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. So in review, let's just say that each child is wired in a certain way. We refer to this as a personality type or style. Their behavior is best understood by looking at a more broad context of a personality profile. Behavior is often a manifestation of the primary and secondary personality type, which we identify with a color. Each color has a fairly intact set of emotional needs. As you understand those emotional needs and apply your interaction through a personality sort of filter, your approach will become much more effective. As you better understand your child's personality color, you can initiate a variety of things to foster growth and development in your child. Secondarily, one of the things you can do for your children is to help them realize their unique talents, skills, and strengths as it relates to their own personality type and style. Many of these strengths do come naturally, yet they're unrefined. And that's really your job as a parent, to refine the natural strengths of your children. Help them see that like a fingerprint is unique, so is their personality very unique, and they can thrive with the natural traits that they have been given, and you can help them understand the context of all of this. Well, this has been a delightful opportunity for me. I hope that as you contemplate understanding and learning personality types and styles, you can now go to this screen and see, if you write this down or take a picture of it, you'll be able to identify and take a test so that you will be able to identify your personality type and style. We'll leave it here for just a second. I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation today, for listening and investing yourself on perhaps a new way of thinking, an added sort of arrow in the quiver of your parenting skills. So I thank you for your participation, your attendance, and I look forward to our next opportunity of talking about parenting and family. Thank you so much. Back to you, Aaron.